Hey guys, Rod here at A Better Way to Farm, and this will be the last video that Kurt and I do because Kurt's got to get in his car and go catch an airplane. So, you know, every time we fly, we make a deal. Kurt's got a deal right now with Delta Airlines. If he's not there, they're supposed to go ahead and leave, and they will honor that, right?
For the record, they leave even if I am there. We found out last time, and I love Delta. Delta's the only airline I fly, but they did leave early last time, so they always
left you.
They did, yes.
So we titled this Anhydrous. You asked, we answered. Here's the deal. Karen gave us the Don't Get Radical lecture before we started. Guys, we are not trying to rail on anybody or anything. However, in the words of Churchill, the problem with the truth is it's the truth. In the words of Hitler, a lie told often enough becomes accepted as the truth. We're going to talk a little bit about the truth here.
And in the words of, I think it was Harry Truman, when asked why they called him "Give Him Hell, Harry," he said, "I don't give him hell, I just give him the truth, and they think it's hell."
There you go. So Mike sent us a question, and he lit us up here, and he said, "Why not fall anhydrous?" And we're going to talk just a little bit about that. I'm going to just turn Kurt loose and say, Kurt, why not fall anhydrous? Kurt, why not anhydrous ever?
Well,
Give us your take on that.
Yeah, I was like, how about we just fix that and call it what it really is, which is say, why not anhydrous ever? So, guys, if I'm going to do the 30,000 foot overview on this on, I think I'm looking at my phone, January 22nd, 2017, I believe. I did a series on this on my Dynamite Ag Facebook page, so go check it out. It was on YouTube for a while. My account got hacked, and that video was deleted, strangely enough. I don't know why.
The only thing they took
was the anhydrous video. So I did one on 6 reasons to avoid anhydrous ammonia, and then there were some counter arguments that were raised because I took a bunch of flack in the comments, and so I actually addressed the counter arguments. So do go check that out. But I'll give you sort of the quick rundown on this. First of all, let's talk about soil compaction. No, first let's give this disclaimer, because we've been talking about 360, and people are going to say you're biased, you sell Y drops. Remember that 360 Yield Center also sells the EquiFlow system, so they're not opposed to anhydrous. I did make it very clear to them when I joined with them that I would never, under any circumstances, promote or sell that product, and they know that. So it's not like I don't sell nitrogen. I don't have a dog in that hunt at all. It's just this is good agronomy, whether you like it or not. So first of all, let's talk about the soil compaction issue. A lot of times we run into guys down at meetings that say, look, I had a relative or I knew of somebody who fought in World War II or Vietnam, and they said they used anhydrous to make runways. Obviously, it compacts the soil. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I want to be as fair to anhydrous as I possibly can, because Lord knows they need all the help they can get, right? that approach. Specifically though, guys, the argument is, well, they use thousands of tons to make the runways. That's probably true, okay? However, here's what I want you to think about. They still did that, and so if we're doing a whole bunch at once to make a runway, that's probably a little different than if we're going to use it a lot over the long haul. But the end result is going to be not necessarily the same, but it's going to be similar. The way that anhydrous works, guys, is it chemically dehydrates your soil. There's this groundbreaking study that was just done in 1967 by Parr and Kanazawa. Look this up, okay? They actually studied from the point of injection and radiating out in circles, and they found that it literally changes the soil profile such that it actively repels water. Like it can't hold water anymore because anhydrous is that hydrophilic that it's trying to go after the water. So it dehydrates your soil and it compacts the soil. That's reason number one. Number two, negative impact on soil biology. It's kind of like dropping a miniature bomb right, at the point of injection, and again, less so radiating out, guys. And people say, oh, it's not that bad. There's this great study that's cited. It's a 2013 piece from The Ohio State University, which is used as the source of bad information in this case. Not knocking Ohio State, but I'm telling you in this particular deal. Because they said, look, the biology comes back. But what they don't talk about, guys, is it changes the composition. We can't just say, oh, biology, and assume it's all one and the same. There's actinomycetes, fungi, protozoa, bacteria. Microbiology is an umbrella term for all the stuff that's under there, and those things reproduce at different rates. So you may have a given composition of 25%, 25 around it, etc., and then all of a sudden, when you kill everything or sterilize the soil, it comes back at 75, 10, 5. See what I'm saying? So it changes. Yeah, they may come back, but it changes things. There was a real famous, I guess you could call him that, individual from Minnesota, University of Minnesota, who once said something to the effect of, the only way anhydrous will hurt earthworms is if the knife cuts them in half as it's going through the field. here's what I would challenge you to do, guys, and I make this, and I say this as a little bit of a quip. I don't mean to offend you in case you or someone you love has been hurt by anhydrous, but let's be really candid about this for just a second. If anhydrous is no big deal, then here's what we're going to do. I'll drink a quart of 32 or 28, your choice. Hell, I'll even do it on camera, heck, okay? But you're going to take a face full of anhydrous. Now, the catch is you're going first. I've never had anybody take me up on that offer because everybody knows you won't be around to see what happens to me, guys. And I know Dad's got a video he talked about yesterday, and I don't know if he'll hopefully be able to share that. But, you know, when it's just the field, if you blow a line, it's like, oh, shoot, that's bad for the field. But what if your kid is downwind? Or what if you do it by a subdivision? I mean, think about the real-world implications of this, people. This stuff is dangerous. And, oh, yeah, it's not dangerous if we're properly trained. I've had that argument before. Come on, accidents absolutely happen. I now have a 3.5-year-old. It has completely changed my perspective and outlook on life. There is nothing that's worth that kind of risk to me, nothing. And so if you wouldn't expose your loved ones or yourself to it, why are you going to expose the microbiology in your soil to it? Because sure, maybe they come back eventually, but it does change things the way that the composition is in the soil. Number 3, timing. When we use anhydrous ammonia, the big benefit that people assume is like, hey, we can do it in the fall, and it's this checklist mentality. We can check it off the list. We can put it out there. It's stable. I will give you that. It's relatively stable because it's in the ammonium form. It's not like it's going to leach away unless you get a whole bunch of rain and the temperature's right, in which case then it's gone. But what you're effectively doing, guys, is you're putting it out there, and you're kind of trying to put it in the bank. But you're putting it in the bank that has more of like a quicksand floor than a concrete floor, and you're hoping that it doesn't get out of there before the plants can get to it. So this is why when he was asking about fall applied anhydrous, I said, let's talk about anhydrous in general. Guys, if you're doing spring applied anhydrous and then you're coming back in wide drop, you're wasting your money at least once, probably twice. Seriously, because you're putting it out there presumably in the middle of the row or at an angle, and you're waiting on the roots to grow into it. That is the late season nitrogen application. You know, if you'll pay attention and you go out and see early on in the field, hey, we put anhydrous out there, and we've got some streaking, the odds are good that it actually looks worse where it was coming in contact with the anhydrous, not where it wasn't, right? Because you're getting a burn, and it's burning the roots rather than actually feeding it nitrogen. So it's probably the nitrogen that's already in your soil that's getting it through until later on. So there's really no reason to do anhydrous in wide drop. That is redundant, in my opinion. So, like I said, the biggest benefit that people typically claim is, well, we can do it early, we can get it done. But then again, like we talked about yesterday, you broaden your window, or you open you lengthen the window for your risk and your exposure.
Kurt, let me interrupt. I have a question. You know, if we're just working on a checklist, maybe when we fall apply the anhydrous, we should go ahead and plant our corn. We can check that off too.
That's a great idea.
Put your anhydrous on early October. Let's go ahead and plant. That'll be done too. We get 2020 nailed here right now.
For the record, when Karen said radical but not too radical, I told her this is the one subject where I can't make any promises. I agree with you on that. Issue number 4, it requires more nitrogen. This is well documented no matter what university you look at. The issue is when we lengthen that window or broaden that window of our exposure and our risk, we know beyond the shadow of a doubt that we're going to lose some. So that loss is actually built into how much we have to use. Guys, I typically don't say this unless I'm in a meeting, but I'm on your page and not mine, so I'll be radical here. I was asked if there's anybody from the government there, and then the one time 3 people raised their hand, and I was like, I've never had this happen before, now what do I do? So I just went for it anyway. But here's the deal. I know that in agriculture, we like to complain it's the city schmucks over-fertilizing their lawn that's causing the problems with the eutrophication, the hypoxia in the Gulf of Mexico. Guys, be reasonable and do the math. We're putting on, and I'm not talking about you individually, I'm talking about like the royal you, right? Like agriculture in general. We're putting upon hundreds of thousands of tons of fertilizer out there, and you really think it's somebody over-fertilizing their lawn? Like this, the anhydrous mentality embraces the idea that we're going to lose some. Where's it going to go, right? Not only are you like lighting it on fire out of you might as well take a dollar bill out and light it on fire, but that's going somewhere, and the odds are good it's going down the river. So do keep that in mind. The effect on pH, look, yes, I hope you understand the chemistry to know that all nitrogen is going to acidify your soil over time. I work with growers in Oklahoma and out in the Pacific Northwest who grow a lot of wheat. And if you do not address your pH issue, you're going to have a lot of problems, because what happens in the process of converting from ammonium to nitrites to nitrate is we kick off hydrogen ions, and those hydrogen ions is essentially what acidifies your soil. So the more nitrogen we use, the more we're going to acidify. But the thing is think about what we just said. What's going to kick off more hydrogen ions? Something that is a blend of ammonium and nitrate already, or something that's only in the ammoniated form? So with that said, yes, The research is clear. Ammonium sulfate will actually acidify faster than anhydrous ammonia, but anhydrous acidifies more quickly than urea, 28, 32, basically any other forms of nitrogen that you can get your hands on. Now, before any of you decide to make the wisecrack of, hey, we're in the Red River Valley where our pH is high, why don't we use anhydrous to, lower our pH? That's not exactly how it works. Once you get over a threshold of about 7, 7.5, it becomes very difficult to start to lower that pH. So don't use this as some sort of a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. Just know that good stewardship, economic and environmental stewardship, requires that we pay attention to these kind of things. And then finally, I've talked a little bit about how it dries out the soil as I was going back to the negative impact on soil biology. But look, I understand that there's counter arguments. Like I said, I did a video addressing this as well. At the end of the day, think about what makes sense for your family, what makes sense for the soil, the health of your family, the health of your soil, the health of your crop, etc. I understand that on a per pound basis, it is the cheapest source of nitrogen out there, allegedly. But the thing I would say is when you start to factor in how much you're going to lose, you need to adjust the cost, because it's really not about what's the cost per pound, but what if we look at just the cost per pound that actually goes to the corn crop? Now all of a sudden we start to tip the scales. And what if we start to look at the cost per bushel, which is ultimately what matters? Then we really start to tip those scales. You know, guys, for better or worse, the day is coming where we're going to face more regulation. I know that the farming community, typically leans right, which is great. We like less government regulation, and we can say, look, there's a Republican in office right now, but these things swing back and forth, and it seems like every time they swing, especially when it goes to the left, it goes further and further. There is more and more regulation coming, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but maybe in your kid's lifetime or your grandkid's lifetime. And think about not just what's our cheapest source of nitrogen today, but what's going to make it so that this family farm can be passed down for generations and generations? And the people who are ahead of the environmental stewardship thing, the people who say, I'm already raising corn on a half a pound applied per bushel produced, what do you have to fear when the government comes in and says, well, it's been 1.1, now you got to do it at 0.8. And everybody else is trying to figure out how to cut their nitrogen by a third, and you're already under that by almost 50%. It's about getting ahead of that game and making sure that it's not just about profitability, guys, it's literally about solvency. So as I told Karen, I get a little wound up about this. I get frustrated because I think this is one of the places where we see some of the worst advice in agriculture. A lot of the major universities say, oh, there's really no difference between this, that, and the other. Here's what I know. I have numerous farmers with documented yields over 300 bushels an acre. And some of you say that's not impressive. You're in Washington State now. I understand that's pretty high. I'm talking about nationwide. I work with a lot of the yield champs, and what I know is that not a single one of them is using anhydrous ammonia. Zero. Because there are better, the title of your page, there are better ways to do things, guys. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying it's going to be simple. And I'm not saying it's going to be fun. But I'm saying it can make a difference in your farm, in the longevity of your ability to farm.
Absolutely. One of the things that happens is, one of the phrases that I really dislike in ag is they say, a lot of times it's people selling nutrients say, well, you'll probably get away with it. And I really detest that, because what they're saying is, 1 year in 10, you're going to have a train wreck, but we're talking about your money, not mine, so no one cares. Well, I don't want to hear you'll probably get away with it. And then they say, well, we've been using anhydrous for years, we're growing pretty good corn. I don't doubt that. And we work with guys, Kurt, you work with some guys that still grow anhydrous and do other things that we say. But the fact of the matter is, I just challenge them, give me an 80, split it in half, trap my way 3 years and watch what happens.
Right.
Because you'll see what happens. People say, well, you'll probably get away with it. I go to my local towns here, we hop in a car, drive 10 miles, and I can show you the people who are doing methamphetamine. You can tell by looking, and they're all getting away with it. I'm going to suggest they're not highly productive, okay? And I think that's one of the things that we look at, is how can we make sure we're doing highly productive. And the second thing is, the same people that convinced us to start using anhydrous are now the people saying, you got to do something to get your soil health back. You got to build your soil health. We had good soil health. Kurt was looking at one of our soil tests last night, and we live in southern Van Buren County, Iowa, guys. It's not great dirt. It's white, it's light, and yet our organic matter and our CEC are good, because we have not done the things to that soil that totally destroy soil health. And so, I look at a Francis Childs, and whatever your opinion of Francis is not material, but I'll say this: Francis's cornfield had an organic matter higher than his fence rows.
Yep.
He understood how to build soil health. He didn't need anybody coming in telling him how to take care of that, because he didn't do any of the things that hurt soil health, and he was doing all kinds of things to help soil health. And this is one of the fundamental things that we can do to improve soil health very rapidly. Any closing thoughts here you'd like to share?
There's just so many options, guys, and I understand, again, it's like take the Y drop, for instance. I work with some guys that have terraces in Oklahoma. Small farms, small fields, terraces, it's difficult to do it. So I'm not saying that something like a Y drop is the be-all, end-all. Your farm is different from everybody else's farm. If you're farming the nice big, flat sections, like literally a full flat section like in Illinois, you really have no excuse, to be honest. And yeah, you can get away with a lot of things because your dirt's heavy and good, whatever. But my point is that, look, across every situation, there may be different solutions. But the thing that I know beyond the shadow of a doubt is there are always solutions that are other options other than anhydrous. And I'd be happy to, and I know Dad would too, we'd be happy to talk about those options with you individually.
Absolutely. We just look at it and say, one of the things about nitrogen, everybody just wants the checklist or the rule. Always do this. I work with Nick out in Western Iowa, and he was talking about they farm they got 160 acre fields, but they got 25 terraces in the 160 acre field. It's all in the contour. And so we have to tailor make that program. They have to pre-plant all they're in.
Yep.
So they're going to put a stabilizer with it. We're going to go out there with 28. We're going to apply it. We're going to inject it or incorporate it, and we're going to stabilize it really as best we can. And they're done, other than what they fly on.
I was going to say, so no, they don't have to put it all on because they can fly it on.
Right. But other than whatever they might fly on, they're done. And so we have to tailor make that for each individual, and we're happy to do that. We just think there's a way you can tailor make it and not use something that's harmful to you. I come into this, we all have a bias, guys. When I was 12 years old, we had a neighbor that went blind because the anhydrous tank broke. And I was dumb enough that I didn't really catch it the first time around. When I was 19, exactly a quarter mile straight south from where I'm setting, I was applying anhydrous for my dad. I was side dressing, and I blew a hose. And luckily I was young and skinny and pretty fast, and it was down in a creek bottom, and I was barely able to outrun it and get to the top of the hill. And I can tell you, I called my dad and I said, Dad, that tractor and that anhydrous tanker is sitting right there in the center of the field, and I'm done. You figure out what you're going to do. I will never touch this stuff again.
Good.
And I've been very faithful to that. And so I do come in with a bias, guys, but here's what I know. I love my children way too much. I love the people who I don't even know way too much to have that cloud blow over them. And we love you enough to tell you the truth. And guys, there are better ways to do things, and we would love to help you do that. Feel free to hit us up with a message or give us a call right here. Text 641-919-1206. I hope you're having a better day.